today with a very, very late June wrap-up. So, I did not read that much in the month of June. I only read 5 books, actually, but all of them were just really wonderful. I had a really great time reading them, so I figured I could just talk about what I did read in June. So, let's get into the books. First of all, I did not make it any further in Northern Borders at all, so that was not a thing. I did start The Reader by Tracy Chee. I only got to chapter 5, but I did start that off of my list. So what I had wanted to read in June was Northern Borders, Raisin in the Sun, Beloved, Princess in Theory, Duke by Default, Prince on Paper, The Reader, Love in the Time of Cholera, and The Kite Runner, and I think that was pretty much it. Out of those 9 books, I read 4 on my list. And like I said, I started The Reader, but did not finish it. So first up, what I read was A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry. I actually do have a physical copy of it, but it is in another state. And I was not able to get it at all because, COVID. So instead I found an ebook of it, and while I was sad I didn't have any of my notes from college, I do basically remember how I felt about it back then. I do not really remember the impact of the story overall. It was more, there were some comedic things in it that I remembered, and I remembered really enjoying it, and I'm also a fan of Langston Hughes, and I really liked the poem in the beginning. But other than that, I didn't really remember the message overall, and that really struck me this time, especially with everything that has been going on recently. I found it to be very powerful. And I don't know, it's rough, and I don't know if it's just because of everything that has been kind of coming to light, or if it's looking at it about 8 years, 9-10 years even since the first time that I read it, but I found it to be a lot more impactful, and it starts a really great conversation that needs to be had on place in society, dreams, unrealized or messed up, abortion, poverty, classism, racism, love, family, a sense of belonging, search for your ancestry, ultimately manhood and womanhood and strength and everything behind that. And overall, I had a really good time rediscovering the book, and I'd forgotten that there was a movie that was actually made out of it, and I'm definitely going to try to seek it out and see if I can actually watch it. I believe it had Danny Glover in it, if I'm correct. But there were a few quotes that I really enjoyed from it. One in particular that stuck with me was, "When you start measuring somebody, measure him right, child, measure him right. Make sure you done taken into account what hills and valleys he come through before he got to wherever he is." That that really stuck with me. But I ultimately gave A Raisin in the Sun 5 stars, which I think is about where it was the first time I read it, if I remember correctly. So, yeah. Secondly, I had acquired and then read Fruits Basket Volume 6 by Natsuki Takaya. This is the collector's edition, so it's nice, and it's a little thicker than usual because it combines two of the original volumes into a chunky one. This, of course, I read this years ago. I'm still enjoying all of the colored artwork that is inside everything, and still enjoying this story. I had forgotten some elements of it because I've definitely watched the anime more recently than I have read this, and the anime doesn't cover like everything. So yeah, it was cool. I really enjoyed it. There's funny parts, some deep stuff, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, and a quote that I really liked from it was, "At the start of the summer, I had a feeling that something would happen, that something would begin, and it came true. Something is happening in front of all of us. Something is starting to move, I'm sure of it. For me too. I have a new purpose in my heart. I have to fight for it with all the strength I can muster." Yeah, this series is fun. And then I read a trilogy. Well, actually, it's a series. I guess there are 2 novellas that are part of this series, which I have not picked up yet. But I read the main books, which is, of course, the Reluctant Royal series. This is the first and third book. I've lent the second book out to a friend. But these were just absolutely fucking phenomenal. Like, I adored this series. As I said in another video, I have been having issues with romance novels lately. Sometimes, you know, they're really enjoyable, and then other times they're just terrible, and I get pretty discouraged with what is out there and what is apparently deemed acceptable. Story-wise, it always seems like they're full of lackluster romances, or the ladies are ridiculous, the men are overbearing pricks. It's not a good time. And oftentimes there's a lot of just ridiculous scenarios and misunderstandings and things that happen, and it's just kind of unbelievable. This series renewed my love for romance novels as a genre, and yeah, like I said, there are 2 novellas in this story that involve side characters, and I really need to seek those out, and I also want to look up everything else that Alyssa Cole has written because she's fucking amazing. Yeah, so let's discuss the books. First up is A Princess in Theory. This is about a, let me see, having a brain fart. Okay, this is about a woman who is in graduate school. She wants to be an epidemiologist. Is that the right word for it? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Basically. She wants to study viruses, which is, there's a virus of sorts that's in here, which was just weird timing with everything that's going on. But yeah, so she is a graduate student in epidemiology, and she keeps getting these weird letters about a prince of a small country in Africa called the Solo, which is made up. I checked. I didn't think it was a real country because I never heard of it. It is made up for the purpose of the story. But yeah. So, she keeps getting these letters, and it's very weird. And she keeps thinking it's like that, that old thing that was going strong a few years ago on the internet and confusing old people, the Nigerian prince emails or something like that. She thought it was a scam. She thought it was something like that, and so she kept ignoring it. The only thing is that it is the real deal. There is a prince looking for her, and she is actually betrothed to him from like childhood to be his bride, and he is the crown prince. He is the heir to the throne. So he comes looking for her to where she is in New York City, and basically ends up pretending to be someone he is not, to try to get closer to her and understand why she had disappeared from his country many years ago. And shenanigans ensue, loves ensues. It is just, I don't know. I really, really loved this. It's full of badass females. There's a black female in STEM, which is like really important. There is a good guy in it, like not a douchebag. He's like a powerful leader, but it also discusses like the pressure on him and how he has to be strong for his people, and it just really discusses male vulnerability as well. And it was just, it was such a good time reading this. And there's like misunderstandings and things, but they're understandable. Like, it's just so good. I have a couple of quotes that I marked because I kind of enjoyed them. This one was interesting. So the main guy's name is Thabiso, and he says, Thabiso shifted in the ridiculous and uncomfortable chair in the fancy restaurant where his lunch meeting was being held. The chair was composed of various parts of animals you'd see on safari in Kenya. The legs were those of a zebra's, the back of a lion's hide stretched across two large horns that curved up and back. An unironic display of how, when it came to Africa, foreigners had no qualms about taking the pieces they wanted and rearranging them as they saw fit. It's like, ouch. But it's, yeah, it has kind of commentary like that throughout, and I just, it's so good. Then something else that I really enjoyed, just like kind of funny, but also kind of in the way these novels run with like healthy relationships. So basically the couple are like close to each other, and he kind of stops and rests his forehead against hers before leaning in to kiss her, and he says, "Can I?" he asked. He wasn't going to kiss her into submission. He'd already submitted to the force that drew him to her. He could only ask her to join him willingly. Her breath was coming fast, and she hadn't pulled away, but she looked ready to bolt. This is novel. Guys don't usually ask after the first time. Frustration tautened within him. I'm a fucking gentleman, Alidi. Gentlemen don't assume. They ask. So, can I kiss you? And that's just like, I don't know. That's like sweet and kind of respectful, and it's just, but that's basically how these novels are. They're trying to set up like healthier relationships and healthier romances that are developing, and I loved it. So I gave this 5 stars. Book 2 is A Duke by Default. It has Scottish men in it, which is my downfall because holy shit, I can't handle them. That book was also wonderful. Something else in the volumes, they're just full of people who do have flaws, but they're working on them. They're still strong and smart and, constantly adapting and evolving like people do. And in A Duke by Default, it's kind of like a slowly forming love. It also discusses like family issues, single parents a little bit. There's some disabled rep. There are characters who are mixed race. There are discussions on racism, especially involving immigrants, and issues around immigration and how immigrants are viewed, especially over in like Scotland and Europe right now, with all that madness, and a little bit about issues in America too, but because it takes place mainly in Scotland, it's really talking about a lot of that over there. And it just is very timely. And the romance, of course, the point of the books is the romance, but there's also like underlying themes throughout that really are a part of it, but also making like a commentary on kind of things going on in the world. And it's just so, it's so good. I also gave that 5 stars, and there were a couple of quotes that I really liked from that as well. It also deals with like disappointing family, or dealing with like roles in family as well. And one quote that I really liked was, "People focused so much on the prince slipping on Cinderella's lost shoe that they didn't realize the real happily ever after was the moment she realized she was brave enough to go to the damn ball alone in the first place. I'm not waiting around for some fuckboy to bring me a shoe. I'm here, working for you. I'm finding my own shoe." That's pretty cool. And there was just a funny one. Main character's at a library, and it's like, "Do you have any books about dukes?" It says, "The librarian's eyes went wide and she rubbed her hands together with glee. We have a fantastic romance section," she said. "Do you need recommendations? How do you like your dukes? Grumpy, tortured, alpha, beta, or alpha in the sheets, beta in the streets? Or alpha in the streets, beta in the sheets." I don't know. I thought that was really funny. The books themselves are also really hilarious. And then the third book, I didn't really tell you what was going on in the second book. Oh my goodness. Second book, anyway, takes place largely in Scotland. The main character's name is Portia. You will have met her in this book. And she is kind of a constant disappointment to her family. She seems to be flighty and kind of all over the place, and does a lot of internships and bounces around from jobs a lot. But she's very knowledgeable. It's just nothing ever seems to stick that well. And she goes to Scotland to do an apprenticeship with a master swordsmith there. The master swordsmith is trying to kind of make his business survive. There is also discussions on kind of a gentrification, I guess, of the area that he's living in as well. And along the way, they kind of stumble upon the fact that he is actually the son of a duke who has passed away, and he is the one who is now officially a duke. So yeah, it involves all of that. So it's really good. The third book in the series follows a character named Naya. She is also in the other 2 books in the series. And you will have also met Johan, who is the male main character in the other books as well. This one, so I was not a fan of Johan in the other books. I didn't really know what to think about him, but he did grow on me over the course of this book. Once I kind of got more of an look at what he's really like. He is an interesting character. What I really loved about this was how well these two knew each other. It was just the insight that they kind of had into each other, and and learning about each other. This one as well had a kind of slowish forming love, and it also deals a lot with familial expectations, you know, trying to be seen as an adult once you are an adult, and the older people around you who watched you grow up just cannot seem to let go of, you know, you, like the you that they know from childhood, when you might not have known as much or been weaker or more vulnerable in some way, and really trying to kind of push past that, and deal with their expectations and all of that, which kind of hit me really hard. I really kind of connected with that in a sense. But so this also deals with that, also the topic of men being seen as vulnerable or sensitive, and it was just, I don't know, I think everything was handled really well. There's also, again, discussions on immigrants and the troubles that are going on in the world, and it was just, I don't know, I really enjoyed it. There's also a non-binary rep in here. There's actually like a lot of really good representation in all of the novels. This also features an interracial relationship, and yeah, like I said, racism, family issues, all of that. It was really good. I also gave this 5 out of 5 stars, which is pretty much how I felt about the whole series. A couple of quotes that I really enjoyed. Let me see. One quote that I liked was main character Naya, thinking about herself. Everyone treated her like a silly girl instead of a woman. At a certain point, she had to consider that maybe they were right. It's like, oh. And then, not so much of a quote, but just something that said a lot. This is again in a country that is kind of made up. It's Lichtenberg, which I guess is supposed to be like Liechtenstein, and it's about a very small country in Europe, and just from the descriptions of it and the fact that the language seems to be a bastardization of French and German, I'm assuming that it's like supposed to be Liechtenstein or one of the other kind of small countries that is like, you know, mini Europe or whatever. They're very small countries that are kind of in the middle, surrounded by other huge ones. There's a couple of them that kind of skip back and forth between, like, I think Italian and German or French and German or something like that. So I'm assuming that it's kind of like supposed to be sort of like that. But so he's constantly saying things like that seem like it's kind of French but also kind of German. I'm not very good. I don't really know much of either of those languages. But something that Johann says a lot in the book is "komm du willst," which, okay, I could be completely wrong, but I believe that that's basically like "as you wish," which I appreciate as someone who sincerely loves The Princess Bride. And there is kind of like sort of callbacks to things like that. Doctor Who and whatnot is also brought up in, I believe, this book, and it's just, yeah, I like the little references to pop culture things that are kind of sprinkled in here. But yeah, anyway, this I also gave 5 stars. Like I said, all of these books yeah, I gave them all 5 stars. I loved them so much. I recommended them to a couple of friends. One of them has a second one right now, and it was just, it was so good. The love is just beautiful to watch it unfold. You know, misunderstandings that do occur are like, they're handled really well. They're not like done stupidly. They're kind of like, well, that makes sense. These books are hilarious. The things that they cover besides the romance are like really important. The characters aren't trying to like fix each other in the course of their relationships. They're just kind of like helping each other evolve as humans, and it's beautiful. And I have to say, the sex scenes are also like, whoa, just very well done, in fact. So if you're looking for like important reads that also have like great rep in it, and you know, funny scenes and healthy relationships and all of that, that also has some really good smut, I fucking recommend these so highly, just so highly. So that is basically the books that I ended up reading this month. Like I said, they were or this past month, like I said, there's only 5. But yeah, so that was a great month of reading. I've already finished like 3 books so far this month. I'm hoping to keep going strong through and have yeah, some more good like summaries at the end of this month as well. But hope you are having a good reading month, and talk to you all later.